Hey, what's up? John Sonmez from simpleprogrammer.com. So I have a surprise for y'all. I don't know why I keep on saying y'all, but I'm just gonna say it. I'm just gonna pretend like I'm from the South. But I've got a surprise here. I have someone that many of you will know because he's an awesome YouTuber who I know that many of you frequent between our audiences, and I really admire Chris Hawks, who has decided to join me for a collaboration here, and I admire his videos and the stuff that he's producing. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to have Chris on Simple Programmer YouTube channel. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks for having me. And likewise, I watch your channel all the time, so I think it's great.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty awesome to see. I've been watching I'm sure you've been the same as we're learning this YouTube thing, right? We're and we're figuring this out, and I've been watching as your channel's been growing and changing, and I've liked I think when you first started out, you didn't really do any FaceTime in the camera, but I'm liking now. I like having more of the personality, and it seems like your audience does too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So when I started out, I was influenced by the new Boston, who was doing a lot of Python. So I was getting into Python in probably 2010 or so, and he was doing a lot of the YouTube videos. So that got me started into making these Python tutorials, and they paled in comparison to what he was doing, and they were really, they were terrible. But beyond that, like I hid from the camera, so I never used webcams or anything like that. And so I had the channel for about 3 years, and in January I hit the 10,000 subscriber mark. And after watching your videos, actually, I started getting motivation to get in front of the camera and be more personable with the audience, and it seems to have worked. So since January, I've more than doubled that number. So things fluctuate back and forth with YouTube, but definitely getting in front of the audience and showing people that you're a real person, I think helps a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like that. I think a more programming channels should incorporate that more. When I was doing Pluralsight courses, I always wanted to do some more camera stuff rather than just showing the screen, but I wasn't really allowed to. So once I started doing my own stuff, I was like, okay, I'm doing a lot of screen personality type of stuff, because that's what people want to connect with someone, and and it's more interesting. We're human beings. We're not just looking at computer screens and and watching code. It's more fun. You want to actually follow someone, not just what they're producing. At least that's my opinion. But
yeah, I agree. I mean, YouTube is this whole new medium. I mean, because how many people had success when they were blogging for years? And it was a lot of people knew some of the famous bloggers that ended up starting $1 million platforms just writing, though. But YouTube has brought the entire video to the mainstream, where people can be much more personable, and you take that blog to the next level when it's vlogging, and it's more real. So in some ways, I don't understand why people watch me, but then I'm like, well, I'm watching other people. So I think there might be a lack of confidence there on my part to say, well, why are they watching me? But I'm watching you, I'm watching Eli, I'm watching Function. And in many cases, I'm like, well, I'm not doing as good as those guys, but I understand that personal connection. So it makes things a little bit easier on me, I think, because you don't have to be some fantastic journalist. I mean, you can just kind of be, off the cuff. And I think some people appreciate that.
yeah, well, and everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone's got their own personality. I think everyone is going to attract a different group of people. But I always wonder the same thing, not necessarily for the YouTube, but or for this, but I do a podcast called Untitled Programmers, and it's 2 hours. It's a mastermind group, and there's people that watch it every week that are dedicated to this, and I'm like, I couldn't do it myself, but you just never know. For someone, I guess, who's starting out, who's just trying to figure out how to become an entrepreneur, it makes sense because they're getting inside your head, and for them it's a lot of value. For me, I'm like, we're just talking about stuff, for 2 hours. So I guess you never know. You never know what is going to be interesting to someone else. People will, if you put up a webcam and you just put it in some random person's living room, people would watch it because they'd be interested.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But cool. So let's talk a little bit about some of the. I don't know how much of your background that people know. I thought that'd be kind of interesting to like talk a little bit about how you got into software development and programming and some of your kind of philosophies on it. But maybe your origin story would be kind of a cool place to start.
Yeah. So I used to be a plumber. I came from a blue collar background. So I left my home at 17. I did graduate high school barely, but I was a complete screw up in high school, just skipping school all the time, barely graduated. And I went to high school in Maryland, and I left to Virginia to actually go to college. And I went to a college that didn't require any sort of advanced or good grades or anything. Basically, it was a straight university in Virginia. So if you ever look that up, it's I'm not going to bash it or anything, but basically they'll let you right in, you pay them money. So I moved down to Virginia to do that, but I dropped out shortly after that because just finances. I was living on my own. So I was doing things like delivering pizza, truck driving. I did HVAC work, plumbing, and eventually ended up getting into the white collar business, moving into actual insurance. And from that point, I grew fascinated with IT because when Facebook was becoming really popular, I mean, like Zuckerberg was in the news, and even before the movie and everything, the social networking movie, I was like intrigued with the fact that YouTube was started by 3 people and was sold for $2 billion. And I had this like fantasy dream that you could just become a programmer and somehow find financial success and possibly even be able to make a lot of money. So I think there was definitely a financial interest that I was attracted to originally get into programming, because at the same time I didn't really enjoy what I was doing.
Right.
Today. So it wasn't until though that I went to an actual rock music concert in 2009. So I went to see my favorite band, Bayside, and at that time, like I was. I don't know. I felt like I was middle-aged, but I was only 28, and I went to this concert, and for the most part, I wasn't even listening to like rock music, and it just made me feel young again. So by the time I got home from the show, I was just pondering for several days, like, what do I want to do in my life? I mean, I was living out in the middle of the country with a single-family home and really a career that I wasn't happy with, and I couldn't see myself doing in 10 years. So really from that moment on, it was every night when I came home from work, I would be studying. I was downloading books. So a lot of my learning came from actual PDF books that I could get online and things like that. So between doing that and getting, into Photoshop, templates, HTML, you fast forward like into my scripting languages. I was using Perl to,
Okay.
But basically I just went home every single night and was studying my butt off trying to get into the industry, and it took 3 years from there to actually be able to do it.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so it was a lot of rejection, even though I had an online presence and a persona and all that stuff. It was one rejection after another before I finally was able to land a corporate gig.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting background. I'm getting a little bit of the reverb on the. I think it's all right now. I don't know. It's weird. Okay, we're good.
Hopefully we can edit that out, maybe. So the audio's okay?
Yeah. Yep. We're good now. All right. Cool. Okay. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yes.
I mean, so much different than the story that you typically hear of a developer. Oh, as a kid, I loved computers and I got into programming and so I think that's really interesting. Like. That kind of explains now your kind of unique perspective, I think, is because you've approached it from a different angle than most people that get into the industry, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's also another interesting tidbit with me is that, and this isn't something I don't think I've revealed to my audience, so it'll be new for yours, but both my grandfather and my father were both programmers. So so I'm actually a 3rd generation programmer, although they went to school for it and I never did. But I will say that there has been interest in, like, I mean, I was installing Leisure Suit Larry on my laptop PC in 3rd grade when most kids didn't even know what a computer was, or outside of the classroom anyway. So I did have a fascination with computers growing up, and especially, the white collar, big business lifestyle. Like, you were in Arlington, like basically downtown Dallas or Arlington. I've always had this white collar dream of being able to work out of like a high rise and stuff like that. So I would say that there's some attraction there also from being a kid. I mean, but when you go into the real world, you're doing construction work and you're with a bunch of other people that may not treat you properly. I mean, it's just there was definitely a lifestyle change that I was looking for that played a big factor into being so determined in order to be able to basically kick my way into the door.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So would you say then that like you kind of, I don't want to say got lost for a little bit, but like didn't realize the value of like hard work and like, making something of yourself. And then like you had that moment, that realization, I guess when you're 28, is that accurate to say? Is that kind of what happened? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but.
Yeah, I mean, I would sum it up. I mean, after that concert, I mean, I realized that I wasn't happy with my career and that I wanted to do something different. And from that point, I talked to my father, and I was like, I want to do this programming thing, and he would help me here and there, like try to focus on different areas. But ultimately, like he wasn't doing anything related to the web development side of things, and it was just. Yeah, it was kind of like a pipe dream. I don't know. And I think in some ways I'm really unusual in the fact that I tried. I think it was that background actually that made me not give up and be so determined that I would be able to do something, if I put my mind to it. So it was really just raw perseverance of just,
Yeah.
I mean, getting involved every day in and day out. There were nights that I couldn't sleep. I would be thinking about some coding problem in my head, and it would be some spelling error or something, or, some import problem.
Yeah.
And all that stuff was just over my head. I mean, so learning programming isn't an easy thing, and I probably went about it the hardest way possible. But I also think it's an inspiration to others, because if I can do it, I really think that anybody can do it. I really do.
Well, and also by going through the harder way. I mean, being self-taught like that. I'm mostly self-taught myself. I went to school, but I didn't really I dropped out of. And ended up just teaching myself. I'd already known some, but kind of that struggling, going through that self-taught path, it sort of makes you a better teacher, I think, because you know what it's like to bang your head against the wall and to just feel like you'll never get it and not have that help. And so I think that, I mean, that definitely comes across in a lot of your tutorials and stuff. It's just this almost compassion for someone who doesn't just get, so because sometimes I think a lot of people that it comes real easy, or they go down they can come from a teaching point of being very arrogant, that people are beneath them and they're high and mighty, and they're showing you how to do it from their intelligence.
So it should be easy for you. And that's the so I try to avoid that if at all possible, because I don't think anything's easy. I mean, even getting into CSS originally, I found that to be extremely complex. And surprisingly enough, I mean, a lot of web developers still aren't very good with CSS. It turns out I wasn't the only one that apparently struggles with it, but I've seen quite a bit of actual senior programmers that don't know how to do basic web design.
Oh yeah. I can't do basic web design.
But you could probably program out of some C++ or something, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just so much out there. I guess that that's something I'm interested to get your take on. Also, is just I think one of the big things that I'm sure you probably get this too a lot, because on YouTube, there's a lot of people going here, visiting our channels, trying to figure out how to get started and stuff. And I think one of the big things that really throws people off is they're just overwhelmed by how much there is. What do you think about that and kind of, I guess, kind of the future of programming? Because I don't know, I mean, when you started, there was less. When I was started, there was even less, right? Sometimes I have fantasies of going back to 1980 and being like, okay, I know it all, because you could almost learn it all, you know what I mean, technology wise. But today there's so much. What do you think about that? As far as new people coming in, and now the swimming pool is it used to be a swimming pool. Now it's a freaking ocean. How do they
Yeah.
get started?
To be honest, it's a mess, and it's going to be more difficult for them because GitHub has now basically consolidated all the hipsters and everything into this one area where they can all just create an npm init config file and start pointing all their their personal weekend project to all these different other dependencies. And the fact of the matter is that in the JavaScript community specifically, I mean, there is people making libraries for every single thing, and it's a multitude of different JavaScript ecosystems and not just one. And I mentioned JavaScript because that's one of the most popular and most important languages right now in web, which is what most people want to get into when they're getting into programming. They want to build the next Facebook and things, in a lot of cases, or games maybe. But with what's going on with the Facebook, or not Facebook, but JavaScript community right now, I'm a little bit concerned, to be honest with you. Just the last 2 months, I've been writing a React and Redux application.
Okay.
And it's only been like eight months since I was in React last, and already there's just so much stuff that's changed in the tooling with Babel, and then some of like the polyfills and stuff to try to get browsers on board with ECMAScript 6. And then you're wondering, well, do I even use something like Babel? Do I go to TypeScript? So yes, these people the new developers now have way too many options. And honestly, I think they need to just pick one and focus. I mean, just one. If you're going to do game development, do C++ or go C# and Unity, but just stick to one. Don't worry about these trends, because these trends are definitely happening faster than probably ever before.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with your advice. Yeah, I'm always encouraging developers to specialize, to pick like some specialty and just go deep with you've got to have somewhat of a broad base, but you'll get that. But like if you know one specific thing, you can actually master that. Whereas sometimes I think some developers they're trying to stay current on everything. And it's just such an impossible task and a useless task because you're not going to use everything, right? I used to do it all the time. I used to read a tech book a week, and I would just be picking up, books on subjects that interested me. And I mean, I gained something from that, but not really. Like, it's like I never used half of the skills I learned. So
I agree with that 100%. In fact, I'm part of the problem. Like with my channel, at one point I was advocating for React, saying React is so much better than Angular, and you should use React with Django. And right now, I'm dealing with, like I said, React and Redux and Babel, and I don't like any of it.
Yeah,
I'm almost to the point where I just don't like React, and it's not really React's fault. It's just a little bit of fatigue with having to learn so much and realizing that my jumping around a couple years ago has really gotten me nowhere with it. So I'm a better programmer, but I'm still not some genius. And that's another thing too. Like if you look at like some of the real crafty people, they can get on GitHub and create their new project, and everybody like says, oh, that's the way you're supposed to do it. And there's it's some small deviation away from the way we were doing it before. And I don't really feel like we're getting anywhere in the end. You know what I mean? These tools and all that and everything don't seem to be building us any better software applications. And I don't know. I just think that, the way everything is with GitHub and everything, some of the best and brightest can build these frameworks, and everybody's like, well, that guy's better than me. So, we have to follow what he's doing. And maybe what he's doing is not appealing to mainstream programmers because, let's be honest, I mean, there's an elite level of programmer, and then there's like the masses that fall in the middle, between and it's just like, it seems like the tools that we use need to be helping businesses, and they need to be appealing to the masses and not, to basically elites and douchebags. I'm just kidding. No, but basically, we need some improvement, I think, especially in the JavaScript community.
Yeah, it's true. It's almost like the cutting edge, like you've got a think tank, and it's good to like push the boundaries and like to have the people that are working on the stuff that's almost like almost like in the academic world, PhD, like where you're pushing the boundary further and experience, but because that is all done in public now, and like you said, everyone's like, well, this guy's real smart, so I need to I need to fork his repo, and we're going to do it the way that he's doing it and setting up his project. It ends up being this really crazy evolution. And I think also, this is one problem that I think we always have had in programming and in tech, is that the next generation, the younger generation comes along and they're like, oh man, why do you guys like have all this stuff? Like it's too bloated. And then they come in and they reinvent the wheel. And then just like, because I remember when Node first came out, right? It was like clean. It was like, okay, what are you guys doing? Like, this is simple. This is how we do it. And now the NPMs, there's so many of them. There's like, now it's like, if you want to create a Node app, it's not just install Node and go. It's like, okay, well, now you need this and you need that and this and now Node is bloated, right? And it's funny how like we can't ever solve this problem. And I think it's just because so many there's so much to be aware of. And so you don't know when you're reinventing the wheel. And not only is it that, but you can't even see it because it looks like something different until you really, really understand it in depth. And you're like, oh yeah, that's the same. We've already did this 20 years ago.
And even like 4 years ago, I would argue with Angular 1.0. I mean, one of the things with Angular 1 was that everybody's like, oh, it's great for these to-do apps and everything. And then all of a sudden, when you get into some real complexity, everything turns to shit. And everybody's like, I have no idea what's going on under the covers anymore, under the hood. And, and it's just, it seems like we haven't even learned anything from that. So now Angular 2 is now coming out with this whole new redesign. So anybody that invested time in Angular 1 is pretty much going to have to relearn everything in Angular 2.
Yeah.
I don't know, but where do we, like, what Angular 1 app has been a game changer, like maybe Google Maps was when Street View came out with, their custom JavaScript that made that happen back in like 2007. I mean, I remember being wowed by Google Maps. I mean, just the scrolling in and the scrolling out compared to MapQuest that we had at the time.
Right. Yep.
And that was revolutionary JavaScript. I mean, that was impressive. And then, with all these impressive frameworks that we have now, I just don't see that level of impressiveness, that as we move forward. And you don't even have to look back that far to be like, look, we just keep reinventing the wheel here. We're just creating complications.
Yeah. Oh, and I feel sorry for the Angular too, like because if you're Angular 1, right, and Rob Eisenberg was a big, did a lot there, and then he like joined the Angular 2 team, and then he split off because he didn't like the direction they were going, and then he ended up doing Project Aurelia. So where do you go? Like, do you go to Aurelia or do you go to Angular 2, which Rob kind of said, no, that's not the right way, or do you just stick with Angular 1? Because hey, dude, what do you really actually need? Like, if you figured out Angular 1, I mean, sure, Angular 2 or Aurelia is shiny and it might be a little bit nicer, but if it works, why, do you really need, like, is there something that you're really missing, or is it just that this is just a better way to do it, So
it's all opinion, I think. I mean, really, because it depends on how you ask. I mean, just recently I talked to a guy who was all about Aurelia. And then we have another guy who's all about React, so I mean, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah,
but none of them get us anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point that you brought up. Is that it's like we have all of this more advanced technology, but we're still not producing better software. We're still not, on average, and we're not making it easier. it's quote better, and I think it's because at some degree we're at the highest levels, like software development is still kind of very much an art, and not even an art in an art where like it's an art in making it effective. It's an art for art's sake, just like game development is an art for art's sake. It's like, because really like high up developers, or developers that really understand what they're doing, or are experts, their artistry is in like the beauty of the code and the structure and making clean, systems and frameworks and stuff. But at the end of the day, some of that stuff doesn't actually turn up a value, I think. And that's the problem.
That's 100% right. Yeah. I mean, and especially if only, that person in this higher state of mind is even able to comprehend everything that, that they've done. Like I said, you have to appeal to the masses. I mean,
yeah.
I really feel like the majority of programmers lie in the middle somewhere, and that our software should be as easy as possible to push as much code as possible, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, I feel like in the whole JavaScript community, there's going to be this big collapsing. I think it's going to happen eventually. We end up having, like, historically, I think you see like abstractions that collapse into, and then there's a new higher level of abstraction that happens when you get enough cruft that gets built up. And I mean, that ended up happening with like, with C++ was a good one, because C++ just got like crazy crufty at some point. And then here comes, some of the, in my world, C# kind of eliminated. I was like, okay, well, there's no point. Like, I don't need to know STL and all this stuff anymore. Just, there we go. It's easy. But I think you see that a lot in technology. But I'm surprised how long JavaScript has gone like this.
Yeah, 20 years. Yep.
Cool. So
25 probably.
Yeah, I thought maybe we'd switch gears a little bit and talk about your how you got into YouTube. I don't know if you've said it on your channel. I haven't heard it, but I think that'd be kind of interesting to hear your story.
Yes, I mean, it was all just geared towards tutorials, and like I said, it was the New Boston. It was somebody that I was watching, and New Boston now is still like one of the largest YouTube channels. I know people that watch you and watch my channel have mentioned his stuff, and he was, for me, the first that didn't have this. Well, he had more of a blue collar approach to teaching.
Yeah.
Which I connected with, because I mean, he sounded like a guy that wasn't in IT at all. He sounded like some guy that you met on the street, hanging out by the, or that you might be drinking with at the bar or something like that. He just didn't seem like, to me, he seemed like a different type of programmer compared to some of the other guys that were doing tutorials. And I was immediately inspired by that. So I tried to do my own, and my own were so bad that, like, there was no pre-planning. I'd go 10 minutes into the demonstration, it wouldn't work, and I wouldn't know why, and I just go, after this, and then, so it was terrible. But I appealed to this particular group originally that was just like, wow, this guy's just funny. And then and it wasn't really until probably a year or so into it that I started taking it more seriously, and ended up removing some of the worst videos that I had that really just put me in a bad light. And anything of it though, so none of this was planned really. And even getting in front of the camera, when January rolled around of this year and I reached 10,000 subscribers, I mean, that was like a few months after I realized that the channel started growing quite a bit, and that there may be some sort of future, and the very least of being like, hey, at least I'm Chris Hawks, I'm a programmer. But I didn't really know what that future would hold, and I still don't. But like I said, after watching some of your videos, and I saw that you were getting in front and doing opinion pieces and stuff like that, and I was just like, well, I could try that myself. And I think like we said, just being in front of the camera and people seeing that you're a real person, and being able to put a face with a voice, I think helped a lot. But where I go from here, I really don't know. I mean, I think it's really awesome that we're collaborating, and this might even be my high point. You know what I mean? Of the entire thing, it might just be downhill from here. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's like, YouTube is an uncharted territory. Like, I mean, there's people that have come before us that have built like huge channels, and I don't know, like, where are we going from here? Like, is it we're going to continue to grow? Is there enough market out there for? I'm sure there is, but yeah, your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to try. My goal for the year was to try and hit 100,000 subscribers. It's getting pretty close to the end of the year. I'm pretty far from that, but I'm not giving up. But yeah, it's been interesting. How's it changed your life? Like, how has it affected you? I mean, have you had people come up on the street and recognize you and say, hey, I watch your YouTube videos? I guess maybe you just started doing in front of the camera, so maybe that's, but you added like 25,000 subscribers since you started doing that. So yeah.
So no, nobody's ever like stopped me in the street or anything to say that they've recognized me. But I mean, I do have people reaching out from all over the world, and I've had people send me emails saying like, hey, I got a job because of your motivation videos and stuff like that. And that would probably be the coolest point. But it certainly affected my life in the fact that people that know me know that I'm on YouTube. One of the interesting things that I was telling some buddies, and I even told some people on my channel on a video I did, that I had a coworker that came up to me and he said, There's this book that you should check out. It's Soft Skills. This guy named John Summers, and I'm like, yeah, I know him, and that was pretty awesome. So in some ways, it's like I said, this could be the high point that I'm talking to John Summers on his channel. But beyond that, it's been interesting that the YouTube is now somewhat of a thought in the back of my mind all the time. Like, okay, I need to make a video. Sometimes it's a stress because I'm like, I think I need to put out a video every day, and sometimes there's no motivation. And like if I go out of town, I'll make some videos real quick to put them on a schedule, and then I feel like they're not the best effort. And another thing too is I don't really edit any of my stuff, and I don't really have a producer or anything like that to help me out along the way. I don't make enough money on it to really pay anybody to help me. My wife actually does a few of the thumbnails for me, which she just started doing recently. But beyond that, I think it's really cool that I've even reached out, that I've had an audience of 4 million people or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it's a little bit stressful at times, but mostly good.
Yeah, no, I could totally relate to all the things that you said. There are at least most of them. As far as you get stressed. You're like, I need to be putting out videos, and then the whole I just recorded I think 4 or 5 videos in batch last night, and I was like, oh gosh, I was thinking about this morning. I was thinking about when I was going to bed last night. I was thinking about this morning. I was like, those were kind of crappy videos. I can't get it out of my head. I'm like, so it was not my best stuff. But I'm like, well, I'm just gonna put it out anyway, and I gotta. And then sometimes it's funny too, like we said about not being motivated. I think most people would be like, "What, are you crazy? If you can record YouTube videos, isn't that just fun and awesome?" And it's like, yeah, I mean, for the most part, but there's days when you're like, don't really feel like talking in front of a microphone today. I don't really feel like I have something useful to say today, but you kind of feel obligated because you got an audience now, and you got to you want to produce something.
Yep. And I think sometimes if we look back on the videos that we may even feel weren't our best effort, some people, because I've gone back and I've actually watched some of my own videos that I didn't think were very good, and I'm like, well, it wasn't that bad, and I still had a pretty positive, feedback from the audience. And it also reminds me of something that Eli, the computer guy, had said one time, where he had an office in Baltimore, and then one day he just didn't feel like going in to do a video because he was doing his videos at that time out of his office. And he decided to go in with a headache, and he made a video, and it had 16 million views or something like that. So he said even to this day, this one time that he didn't feel like doing a video turned out to be his most successful video. But I think that's interesting. A lot of times it's not as bad as I make it out to be, I'm sure, but it still hangs in the back of the mind.
Yeah, no, yeah, same thing. Yeah, sometimes a video will come out that I know wasn't a good one, and so I'll look at it on my phone, and then I'm listening to it, and I'm like, that was actually not too bad. And then other times I'll do a video like that one that I did, that creation versus evolution one, and I was like, people are definitely going to agree with this. They're going to appreciate that I'm approaching this from a very rational, very, very very unbiased standpoint. And everyone was like, John, you're an idiot. I can't believe what an idiot you are. That reaction, a lot of people were like, oh, you should have expected that. But I was thinking, okay, hold up. I thought this was a great video. So you just don't know. You don't know.
It's your millennials one with the entitled millennials and the jobs, and how millennials feel like, I went to college, I deserve a high-paying position. And yeah, that seemed to have sparked some outrage as well. Oh, that's one thing too. If I've mixed up names before. I did a video. It was one of the worst I've ever done, actually. But I did the top, most influential computer scientists of all time, and I mixed up one Japanese guy's name with another one, and somebody said it was racist. I'm like, that's not racist. I mean, but yeah. I mean, it's sloppy work for sure, and it's an embarrassment. But yeah, so basically the creator of the Ruby language, I mixed him up with the creator of the Nintendo language, and it was from my own memory because I recognized the name. I'm like, oh, that's the Ruby creator. I didn't even do any fact checking, and
right.
It's just so it's one of those things where it's oh man, you hear about it over and over and over again too, depending on how many views the video has. So Just yeah, it was a simple mistake, but some of that stuff hangs over my head too. It's like you got to be careful what you say and what people might think of you, and even if it's completely unexpected.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, though, it doesn't matter that much. I mean, I had the whole, the racist thumbnail thing with the China thing, and it's like, come on, guys, like seriously, like I get what people are saying, I get the whole thing, but it's like, I mean, this is YouTube and this is the internet, and people are just, some people, they're just harsh. They just want to cause trouble. It's like, I mean, I always try to like look at someone and think what were they trying to do and what did they intend, and more so what is their overall message, right? As opposed to getting stuck in the particulars and the details and the way that they presented it, or some kind of social faux pas they may have made. I just made up the word faux pas, but you know what I mean? And that's how I look at the world. So, if I watch that video and I'm hearing you mix up, was it like Shujiro Miyamoto and
yeah, exactly.
I see. I can't even remember the Ruby guy. Okay, so the Ruby guy, he actually did the commentary for my book, for the Japanese version translation of my book, and I'm spacing his name. So look at how rude I am. But it's like I wouldn't care.
At least you're not calling him the Nintendo guy, yeah. So
exactly, yeah. I thought the Nintendo guy was dead until I just saw an article. I don't know. Like, I do mix up Japanese names. That's fine. Like, I think people do that. Like, it's, if you're not, it's easier for us being Americans and speaking English to know the difference between Joe and Bob, but to know the difference between one Japanese name and another one is not quite as clear to us. I don't know if that's like, some people will say that's racist, and they can say that, but I don't know. I'll just admit it. So.
But yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I definitely don't agree that it's racist. I think it's just for me, it was just it's just me being sloppy, really, for not fact checking and coming out with a video that had thousands of views and making me look really bad.
Yeah, that's all right. It's fun. I wrote a blog post called JavaScript, why JavaScript is dead, and I wrote that like 5 years ago. And I still get comments on that video. Or, I mean, on that blog post. So yeah. So well, cool. Well, thanks for joining me, Chris. I appreciate it. Definitely you're one of the YouTubers that I respect and admire, and appreciate you taking the time. I think my audience definitely is going to be happy to hear from you. And like I said, I've been following your journey, as so we've been kind of going on similar paths on YouTube, and it's kind of cool to meet, to finally get to talk to you and discuss some of the stuff. I think everyone will find that. I was trying to figure out like what should we talk about, but we're like meta here, so I think that'll be fun because I think a lot of our audience has been watching both of us grow, and so it's kind of, I think it'll be fun. We'll see. This could be one of those videos, right, though? This could be the one where they're like, you guys are idiots. You should have just talked about C++. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, I agree. And this was awesome because I'm a little bit of an introvert when it comes to like talking to people. And, I feel like, maybe if it is well received that we can try to do this more often and maybe get some of these other guys, man, even like Eli. Come on, get on here.
Yeah, come on, Eli. Good. All you people, everyone watching this, go on Eli's channel and tell him to go to come collab with us. We're friendly. We're friendly dudes.
Yeah. Function. But it was great. It's an honor to be able to talk to you on your channel, and I hope it's well received. We'll see.
I'm sure it will. All right, Chris. Thanks again, and everyone. Oh, by the way, I make sure that I have you on the channel. And I haven't even given you a shout out to your channel, so I'm going to do my little thing where we'll put an annotation here that says that's when you click this, you'll subscribe to Chris Hawk's channel. So do it. Go check it out. He's got some awesome videos there. Thank him for coming on by going and click over there, subscribe to his channel, and check it out. So, all right.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, take care.